Ladies and gentlemen, another day, another record has been broken in the world of chess. Perhaps the greatest story developing in the chess world right now is that of Faustino Oro. He is a 10-year-old from Argentina. I think he's currently either living in Spain or playing a lot of tournaments in Spain. Regardless, he is already being touted as the Lionel Messi of chess. So I've played this young man, right? And right now, this young man, at the age of 10 years and about 8 months, is on pace to become the youngest ever player to cross 22 and 2300 and get the international master title. And maybe the youngest ever grandmaster, breaking the record by like a year. Recently, Faustino crossed 3,000 on chess.com. Recently, Faustino defeated a 2600 level grandmaster in over-the-board chess. And I will be showing you those games in this video, and a bonus. I will be showing you a win over a grandmaster. And if he wins this tournament that he's currently playing in right now, he will become the youngest ever international master in the history of chess. 3,000 ELO, beating a 2600, youngest I am ever. He's 10. He's 10 years old. Let's get into these games. Really, I honestly cannot say enough. And, you know, the incredible thing about Faustino is that while he is tactically very sharp and obviously very gifted, his positional chess is really what's incredible. Like, this guy learned chess 3-4 years ago as a 6 or 7-year-old, and he's a positional player. All right? So first I'm going to show you the game where he crossed 3,000 against Grandmaster Silmarils. I think this is Georgi Margvelashvili. That's exactly who that is. And Georgi's obviously, I almost said Greek, Georgian, like his name, Georgian. But I think he now lives in the States. Knight f3, knight f6, and we get a fianchetto on the queen side, and then we get a fianchetto on the king side by white. This is what a lot of grandmasters play if they are like not in the mood for an insanely complicated game. D5, and white mouse slips. White mouse slips. He plays e4. You know, he was trying to play e3. Now, it happens. That's why the focus of this video is not going to be necessarily on this game. It's still kind of impressive how he absolutely dismantles this 2930 rated grandmaster. Now, it might be child's play for people watching this who are advanced. For 99% of you being up a pawn in the opening, it doesn't mean anything. Knight takes e4. D3, D4, and I mean, okay, you're just playing a game, but white doesn't have an e-pawn. Faustino plays knight bd7 and c5. He just plays for the center. Position is almost symmetrical, but white doesn't have an e-pawn. Rook e1. Now he chops down 2 pawns in the center, because that's what he needs to open up his bishops. And here he just plays the very straightforward knight c5. And again, this transformation of the structure leaves black with AB versus AC, so this is going to be a weakness. These pieces can trade a little bit later in the game. Queen trade, knight d3 on the way, etc. Now, Faustino's obviously going for a queen trade, right? Because he's up material, he wants to trade pieces. Knight e5, take, and now this move, rook c8. Very simple, straightforward move, and you want to pressure that pawn in the long term. Queen goes to b8, queen goes to b7. So the queen has replaced the bishop. Look at this, very smart play. And Faustino also keeping up on the clock with his opponent. Knight b5, rook d8. Also, chess.com has this thing where the rating that the rating changed to shows for some reason, rather than the rating it was before the game started. This was the game that Faustino broke 3,000 on. Knight g4, knight d3. So it looks like, you know, you go knight g4, you're looking for take, you're looking for mate, right? You're looking for stuff. You're looking for black to maybe play passively. Yeah, Faustino's just like, well, you sidestep and you give away the d3 square, and knight d3. And now he picks up a rook for the knight. We have bishop f6. Yeah, the position is quite open. Faustino goes here. He opens up his king. And this does look very scary. But Faustino is very good at one thing in particular, and it is simplification. You're going to see an endgame, the third game that I'm going to show you today, where he beats Grandmaster Ippolito Assis. He's going to do a very similar thing. He just simplifies. And now, despite black's king being open, it's always going to be safe. Rook c1 is a back rank threat if the rook ever leaves the rank here. And now all Faustino has to do is manage his time. And he is close enough on the clock to Margvelashvili. He picks up the pawn on a2. He's just 2 pawns up, and his king is pretty safe. Queen f4, rook a4 attacks the queen, rook c4. And black is still obviously under a tiny bit of pressure, but he just very calmly, very methodically, doesn't panic, wins the pawn on h5, plays rook d5 looking for a trade. He looks like he's about to get mated. He's not. Queen goes to a6, queen goes to b6, and now you just, you pick up the queen and rook b5. And that's it. You escort the pawn. And the last thing that white tries here, if he had gone passively, we would have went here. This is game over, because by the time the king runs over, this is what happens. King f3. So white tries this. That's a typical trick in blitz to catch your opponent potentially pre-moving. But Faustino takes and crosses 3,000 elo with a very nice convincing game. Now, okay, admittedly, 3-minute game, online, kind of meaningless. People mouse slip, doesn't really matter. Yeah, how about the #1 rated player in Uruguay? I'm not talking about Luis Suarez or, you know, any members of the football team. I got like a football knowledge from like 10 years ago. No, I was watching them play. They have like Nunez. They're an amazing team. I was watching them play recently in the Copa America. I'm very scared for the matchup with the US. It's very lucky that it's group stage. So, Georg Meyer is German. He moved to Uruguay. I don't actually know if he lives in Uruguay. I don't think so, but he might. Maybe he does. And he changed his federation to represent Uruguay. I think he has some relatives there. And he is a French player. So Faustino played this in a classical 90-minute game against the guy who literally eats, breathes, and sleeps and repeats the French defense. I mean, Georg Meyer plays a ton of French defense. And in particular, one thing that he plays is he doesn't care what you play. He will take, and then he will play knight f6, knight d7. He'll play knight d7, knight f6. He'll play bishop d7. Like, he plays a lot of very, very solid ultra-positional lines. Very positional player. So how are you going to beat a guy that's an ultra-positional player if you're like 10 years old? So we have an advanced French. Bishop d7, knight e7 is the line that Georg chooses. Now we have castles, and Georg chooses to play this kind of structural transformation on d4 and put the knight on f5 with some pressure. Now, black will play rook c8 and queen b6 and maybe bishop e7. Maybe he will break with the move f6. And he will put a lot of pressure on the center here. Now, the disadvantage of playing such a quick capture on d4 for black is that you actually allow white access to the c3 square. So if you had waited, white wouldn't have gotten this access. Now, as you can tell from their time management, which is in the bonus, both guys clearly know what they're doing. So black puts the rook on the c file, and Faustino plays this move, bishop g5. This is one of the best moves. And the point being that if black tries to play f6 now, it's too early. So opening your position like this is too early. Opening like this is just losing because of bishop h5 check. And you can sacrifice in the center. You can play bishop b4. And you've got a mate here in a couple of moves, like here in queen d3, etc. So, or queen g4 rather, when the king goes to f5. So you can't play f6. You also should not go here. Let me tell you why. In the French defense, this is your problem bishop. You put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns on light squares. I clicked the wrong pawn. 5 pawns on light squares, and this bishop is quite bad, right? So you kind of don't want to trade your dark squared bishop. It's just generally not a great rule of thumb, which is why you go queen b6. And now Faustino plays knight a4. So he attacks the queen, he defends the pawn, right? And we have queen a5. Now the bishop comes back to d2, so they're playing a little bit of like, you know, like rope-a-dope. Now, if the queen goes to d8, black loses time, so actually now he does offer a trade. Now, you may be wondering, Levy, didn't you literally just tell me we don't want to dark? Yeah, I did. Difference being, the knight went there, so now it can't go to b5, so it actually needs more time to reroute, so the knight is offside. And also, if you take, which is what Faustino does, the pawn on d4 is a huge target for black. Black now has 3 attackers on it to white's 2 defenders, and white doesn't have enough time to get more defenders on it, but plays a3, and Georg plays queen e7, which has all been played before, right? There was no way to continue the, you know, queen a5, you go b4, knight c5, you get a nice advantage. So queen e7, knight c3, and a6 stops knight b5. Faustino moves his queen, black castles. So Georg Meyer has played 16 moves instantly. They are playing in the territory where black is more comfortable. Black is a French expert. He's like 50 years old. I don't know how old Georg Meyer is, but I think he's like 30. He's played this opening dozens and maybe even hundreds of times. And Faustino has to play. He plays Rook D1. He's down 28 minutes on the clock. Rook D1 is a move that makes a lot of sense. You kind of don't know where you want to put your rooks. Like, Rook C1 looks good. Even Rook B1, B4, B5 is an idea to put the other rook on C1. You don't want to go here. You also don't want to go here, because that move is stupid. But Rook D1, you overprotect the pawn, and you enable potentially the movement of your queen. Now, for black, there are many ideas here, and Georg spends 20 minutes and plays knight A7. Now, the thing is, somehow, none of the ideas quite work. For example, if you play B5 with black, white plays B4, you can't move. You would love if your knight could go there, so let's say you play knight B8. Well, by the time, you execute your plan, like knight D7 and knight B6, yeah, like by the time you execute your plan and all this, you're just gonna get mated. I mean, first of all, I'm gonna take on F5, I'm gonna get over here, blah, 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 blah. So that doesn't work. And if you wanna play F6, then there's G4, which is a huge problem. And after this, I take. Can't take with the pawn because you're gonna lose the knight. Can't take with the queen because you're gonna get forward. You can take with the rook and try to survive, but you're under significant pressure here and the position is quite bad. Which is why Georg decides, okay, I'm gonna trade like this. And he plays bishop b5. So he's getting rid of his bad French bishop. Here's the problem. After take, you got rid of your bad French bishop. But suddenly, you left white with a really good bishop. A really good bishop. Which Faustino, who is 10 by the way, oh my goodness, I just realized I made Faustino a GM. That's hilarious. He's not even an IM yet. It was just a Freudian slip. Is he a GM over here too? Oh my god, I made him GM in the second game as well. In the third game, rather. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, now, there's definitely already people who commented. Because you guys know, you watch and then you comment as the video is going on. You're like, why is he a GM at 9 minutes? Well, now at 12 minutes, it got amended. So you got to edit your comment and be like, Gotham called me out. And I'll call you out for something else. When this video is over, make sure to be productive. Do your homework. Don't slack off at your job. Do some push-ups. Go for a run or an incline walk on a treadmill or around the neighborhood. And for legal reasons, if you live in a dangerous place, I'm not liable if you go outside and get hit by a train or something. No, but seriously, be productive now that you've been called out. Although I do apologize for making Faustino a GM. Now, instead of that, the computer wants knight h4. It actually wants Georg to be patient here. It doesn't want him to rush. It wants him to go for a trade like this, which white doesn't even have to do. But that is the point. So queen f4. Queen d7. Now, when I was looking at this position, I was looking at g4. Knight goes back to e7. Maybe king h1. Maybe knight goes to g6. Maybe f6. Faustino plays the best. He plays h4. The point of h4 is to stop the knight from ever going to g6. And now if black plays knight e7 with the same idea, now you go to g5. If g6, now h5. So everything is perfectly positioned. If h6, knight h7. And when the rook leaves, now you sacrifice. And the very simple pawn takes f6. It's not about taking back the knight. It's about that. Knight f5, take, queen h6, black resigns. Can't stop mate. Got all these 50 legal moves in this position, can't stop mate. h4 is very clever. And you'll notice Faustino did not spend much time on it. Black plays h6. The idea is to prevent knight to g5. Now, at this point, g4 is the best move. But the follow-up to g4 is super weird. Queen e3. To get out of the way of all the counterattacks on the queen. That's not very human. Instead, Faustino plays h5. And again, he's just trying to restrict the space and get this going in one breath. Knight e7. And the move Faustino plays here, like, to me, doesn't just show he's got potential to be a GM. He has potential to be the world champion. The world champion of chess. I'm calling it now. Now, that's a lot of pressure. I'm not putting any unnecessary pressure on the young man. But what I'm telling him is, I have seen a lot of people be 9 years old, 10, 11, 12, be good at chess, whatever. But most of them, they play aggressively. And if you let Georg fight back in this position, he's going to be happy. So you know what Faustino plays here? It's such a cold-blooded move. Rook e1. played in like 3 minutes. And basically, the point is, black can't do anything. He makes an improving move that has two purposes. Number one, if the f-pawn ever comes out, now when you take, the rook pressures here. You see the rook preemptively went to the e-file. But secondly, there is another idea. And the idea is the threat of the rook lift. Hidden in this position is the fact that it's actually no longer the f and g pawns that want to go forward. Yes, you kind of want to, go full Clash Royale here and just battering ram, and then all the captains come out and whatever, or what are the barbarians, but no. Knight a7. Georg is kind of feeling the pressure. He wants to maneuver, he wants to put some pressure, maybe he wants to play queen a4. Knight h2. Again, baiting, hoping, let's go black, play f5. So that I take, you play rook f6, I play here, and then I come back and claim the dark squares. Knight c6, knight g4, rook f8, knight h6, right? These are the ideas. Knight h2. Georg is still trying to make this more of a maneuvering game, but knight g4 is on the way, and now it's just a matter of time. I mean, first of all, a threat in this position is queen h6, super low key, but also this, because it's the same purpose, same concept, but it's just mate. I mean, there's just a million mates. So knight g4, knight f5 comes back, and again, Faustino plays the top move of the computer, the best move in the position, and this move, if you thought rook e1 was impressive, the next move is absolutely gonna blow your mind. Yes, you can look at take and knight e3 and then knight e7 and g4, but this is all bad. The best move in this position is to hit the pause button and go, black can't do a thing to me. You know what you do? Bishop to b1. All you're doing is preventing knight takes d4 because you would give up the rook for the two pieces, completely removing black of any defenses and then going there for checkmate in a moment. But besides that, you are setting up a threat. Both rooks don't just support the center and the potential opening of the center. Both rooks support the lift. Faustino's 10 years old. He's already doing lifts. Knight e7. You try to create a fortress. You try to disallow entry. Faustino doesn't need an invitation. He shows up wherever he wants. Knight to f6. All of the snipers sitting from a distance. Rook d3, rook g3, rook e3, rook g3. Pawn takes f6, pawn takes f6. Black has no defense. Faustino has completely stripped the black position of all important squares. He goes to g6. We take, and we take. And like I said, Faustino is so good at simplification. You don't have to do that, by the way. You don't have to. Even in this position, White could have went queen g4. White could have went rook e5. I'm not even joking. These are like this is like the top line of the machine. And the point being that if takes, queen g7 is mate because of the pin. So rook g8 is possible. Then you sacrifice, you get this position. I mean, it's crazy. White is completely winning. But instead of any of that, he takes the knight. He takes the other knight. Bishop e6 check. Rook c2. And he's just a clean pawn up in the endgame. And then he finds rook d3. Abandoning the back rank, because the king is always safe. Rook goes to h3. Rook b1 check. That's it. And now, it's my turn. Look at this. Look at this absolute mastery. Carving up the chessboard. Everything is protected. His king is safe. Rook c8 check. Rook c7. And he ends the game in style. You cannot take, because of the x-ray, anywhere the king goes, the queen is the next check, and he beats a 2607 GM at 10 years old. I don't think anybody's done that ever before. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if that in and of itself is a record. Dude's 10. He just beat a 2607. Georg Meyer at his peak was like, I don't know, 2660 or something. Like, he is, no joke, Georg Meyer is one of the leading modern experts in the French, like a top 5 expert. And in this game, Faustino, who is 10, puts on a clinic, a positional masterclass in patience. Moves like rook e1. And then, I mean, bishop to, are you kidding me? What a game. What an expertly played game. And this was a couple of weeks ago. He was at the tournament where I was in Spain. We weren't in the same section. We were in separate sections, and he did really well. But he's now playing another tournament in Barcelona. If he gets 6.5 out of 9 in this tournament, he will get an IM norm, and that will be his final one. And by the way, look at this. He's 10 years old. Bro plays multiple openings. I mean, he plays E4 with white. He plays D4 with white. He's 10, dude. Like, I don't know how else to hammer this home. He's 10. How can he possibly play this many openings? How is it even possible? Like, I don't even... Anyway, bishop b4, right? And not only does Faustino play a bunch of different openings, he invites the main lines. Like, Black plays this to play bishop b4 against knight c3. Yeah, Faustino says, okay, let's go. He doesn't play knight f3. He doesn't try to chicken out of anything. He plays knight c3. Bishop b4. Queen c2 is one of the main lines. Black plays d5. d5 is not the main move. Also, I think Black might have been late to this game. I think that's what happened. So, c4. d5. We have a trade. Bishop g5. Very normal, straightforward move. Bishop h4. e3, white just wants to go here and here. Simple. Black attacks the center. And what white likes to do here, rather than let black take, is to take. And the point is that at some point, black will have to take the pawn back, and moves like d4 just are a little too early, because that's an oopsie, right? So black plays bishop e6, overprotecting the pawn. Faustino develops, plays knight d4. All right, going after the bishop on e6. We have this, and now an interesting moment. You know, you would think, oh, he went here, so obviously the idea is to take the bishop. But then he decides to go here instead. So the idea is maybe to take the bishop, but not right now. And the other idea is, if you get your knight taken, and by the way, black spent a lot of time on bishop takes knight. He obviously didn't like something. So maybe he didn't like that if he waits, if he makes just a couple more improving moves, at a certain point, what's going to happen is that if he doesn't take, he's going to run into problems. So, I don't need, like, let's say, like, rook e8. I mean, you can move the bishop, and this is probably not what you want with black. You do not want a rook to pressure the center. So he decides, I'm going to take, and now we both have one pawn in the center. So this way, white doesn't have any particular targets. I'm very solid. I'm going to play queen b6. And now Faustino defends his pawn tactically. So this pawn's not hanging. This pawn is. Queen d2 is a very classy move. You cannot take because discover check. And now suddenly the workings of yet another Faustino masterclass, the way Messi can go 1-on-4 against defenders, Faustino can go 1-on-1 against 30 and 40-year-old grandmasters. The workings of a positional masterclass start becoming a little bit more obvious. What am I talking about? Well, yeah, okay, white has two bishops, which is generally considered an advantage. But you start looking at black's pieces. Where's the knight going, right? Like, if I'm playing black here, I might consider knight b8. Here's the problem. Can't do that, right? So you can't do that. So then you might consider knight e4. It's time for drastic measures. Because after knight takes, pawn takes, and bishop takes, you know, you get f5, g5. Like, you can actually make something happen. Knight e4 also potentially enables the movement of the other knight. But black plays it slowly. He plays king h8. Now Faustino gets bishop e2. Right, so bishop e2, there was no bishop h7, so that, right, now black plays bishop f5. Looks like black is making progress. Rook is coming to e8, knight is coming here. Faustino plays such a smart move here. Again, just a ridiculous level of class demonstrated by this man. He plays f3. Very simple idea. Take away e4 and g4. Take away c5 and e5. The knights are being completely shut down. Just two absolutely simple pawn moves. It looks weakening. It looks weakening. A lot of weaknesses, potentially. Black can't exploit them. He brings a rook to the center. Now we castle. We don't care this is here. Find me a useful move. You can't. Rook c8, rook c1. Find me a useful move. Okay, queen goes to a5. Right? Rook d1. Overprotect the center. Maybe at some point we play a3, so it's never a weakness. Black plays a6. Black is out of moves. Faustino plays bishop f1. I don't know if I completely agree with bishop f1, but it's a, you know, he's just kind of trying to play it a bit slow. Now, the best plan here for white is actually to start firing with these pawns. That's not really Faustino's style. So he plays rook e1. And I think at this point, Faustino's like, I'm up 30 minutes. Black doesn't have a move. So I'm going to kind of let him self-destruct a little bit, even though he's a grandmaster. Now, he plays bishop d3. That move is not great because he loses control of c4. But again, the move here recommended by the computer is to continue to restrict black's pieces or offer a trade of queens. So try to either bulldoze, the point is, or get the queens off. And again, black is severely restricted. So if you get into an endgame that looks like this, white is always better. So bishop d3, he does this, and black obviously is very happy now with c-file pressure. So he doesn't play it perfectly, but it was a positional squeeze for a while. Now he's creating counterplay over there. Rook c4, rook c1, b4. There comes black with the counterplay, but he's down a lot on time. He's down 20 minutes on the clock, and 10 of those minutes are because he showed up late. So, AB, queen b4. And now, that's what I mean. Faustino is deeply rooted in good positional and strategic chess, but he's a kid. And kids are tactical monsters. The queen no longer defends the pawn. You had to play rook b4. Queen b4, there's a problem. I take the knight. Black had calculated knight takes d5, knight d5, rook e8, and knight f8 blocks. Everything is protected. But what he had forgotten is I take the knight first. Now, if you take with the g-pawn, your king's wide open, so you got to go here. Now, knight takes d5. Your queen is covering the escape square. Rook e8 is mate. If this, you got to sack your queen. So he goes queen d6. Faustino immediately goes for the endgame, where he considers that he will be a slight favorite. He has a one-pawn advantage, just like, may I say, against Georg Meyer at the end. The difference here is that black's king is wide open, and the difference here, black's king is not wide open. Rook d1. Queen e2. So now it's just a matter of time. Will Faustino be able to create a winning chance? Black's king is very weak, but he is defending himself. King h2. Rook d5. There it is. He finds it. He has to finally get his final pawn involved. You almost don't want to do it. But there it is. And just like the Georg Meyer game, the king simply doesn't have enough defense. And on top of that, there's an outside pass pawn. So now when everything clears out, the h-pawn is going to be the difference maker. The king is hunted out into the middle of the board. By the way, rook e5, very tricky move, right? He didn't have to do that. He could have kept playing, but then slowly Faustino would have found a way. b3 is a nice deflection. Rook c2. Rook c7, rook c6, and he correctly identifies that his king is safe, goes up to g3, queen f6, rook d6, disconnecting the king from the defense of the rook, and king e8 is nice. You save the rook, but you don't save the king. Faustino Oro is the youngest ever player to cross 2,400 ELO live over the board. 3,000 online for sure, probably has the highest ELO victory at 10 years old in classical chess, which is against Georg Meyer. And if he continues in this exact tournament where he is playing Grandmaster Assis already and several other people, he will become the youngest ever international master in the history of the game at 10 years old and 8 months. Unbelievable stuff. Lionel Messi of chess. Now get out of here.